Now, you've made it through the organized team activities, the endless meetings, and the grind that's known as training camp, and now you've even managed a few meaningless games to emerge injury-free in the preseason. But now you're lining up for the most important game of the so-called meaningless preseason, the finale, so to speak. And while it's not literally the last game, it is, for most players on the eventual 53-man roster, the game that really counts. This is the final dress rehearsal. This is the game that you'll be using to make sure that your chemistry is intact with your starters and that you're operating as a well-oiled machine. This is where you look at your game plan, and it's the first and last time in the preseason that you can actually execute your game plan. It's an opportunity to work on timing, execution, and you won't be getting this opportunity again until the regular season. It's your first opportunity to show the rest of the league what they might be able to expect from your team going into week 1. Or is it? While this may be true for most teams, for a select few unlucky enough to fall victim to the schedule makers, this may indeed be another week to play it close to your vest. You'll have to hide your intentions and try once more to keep your starters healthy until the regular season. The Titans and the Raiders, conference opponents that play each other in the preseason, but again early on in the regular season. Both teams will have to use other means to prepare not only physically, but mentally for the start of the regular season. Oakland and Tennessee. That's our topic for tonight, and this is the Will to Win pregame show. Welcome to the show, everyone. Week 3 of the preseason is usually the time you show off what your team will look like once you've played through the second half and made adjustments, and it's an opportunity to really get a feel for the direction that your team will be heading into the regular season with. And while it's not always the case, week 3 still gives us a long glimpse into the chemistry and makeup of our team. We at the Will to Win are using week 3 as our own dress rehearsal to introduce our new show format. During the season, we will have a guest either from radio, podcast, or perhaps YouTube that will come in and talk to us about their team and the matchup that we have that particular week. We'll also be following our guests with a look at the opposing team with our coach, Ted. Coach Ted will be breaking down the opponent's defense and offense into easily understandable parts, and he will give us an idea of what to look for in each Sunday's contest. We know that you're going to enjoy this material. After our break, the Oakland Knight and myself will be weighing in on our own thoughts on the state of the Raiders. And finally, we'll close with our Pick'em segment, where various YouTubers and podcasters, as well as a few lucky viewers, will pick 4 games each week for a Raider Image gift card prize at the end of the season. Well, folks, last week was a tough week, but if we don't go back and take a look at what we did wrong and make some adjustments, we're probably going to do the same things again week after week. So, just like the team, let's take a look at what we did wrong last week.
Clemens. Gronkowski looks, that pump comes back, seam route right, and it is caught. Jack Miller, touchdown! Raiders. It is caught for a first down by Gary.
We'd like to welcome to the show the founder of Take on the Titans, Michael Hopkins. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on in and have a chat with us. The Raiders had a tough game last week against the Green Bay Packers. We were rotating in a bunch of players that we wanted to get a look at in preseason, and whether or not it was a combination of that or key injuries to some of our better run-stuffing players.
Sure. The addition of DeMarco Murray and through free agency, really through trading with him, it really gave the Titans something we haven't had since Eddie George. We've had a series of second-round running backs that all turned out to be bust, and one of those is still on the team in Bishop Sankey, and he is fighting for the number 3 position at the running back right now. Derrick Henry just happened to fall in our lap in the draft, and a lot of people said that he really wasn't ready for the NFL, and right now, at least in the preseason, he's showing that, yes, he's not only ready to play, he's ready to dominate. Right now, Murray, I believe, has 10.5 yards per carry, and Henry is just right behind him with 7 yards a carry. And Bishop Sankey, you mentioned him in an earlier discussion, I believe, and he's somebody that we floated as far as maybe as trade bait or maybe just cutting him all together because he really hasn't proven himself. And then just so happens in the first preseason game, he just seems to be the player that we thought we drafted originally. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's enough because we're probably only going to keep 3 running backs and a fullback. And we've got currently something like 6 or 7 running backs vying for the job. And Dexter McCluster, I'm sure you're familiar with at Raider Nation, that he has always been a favorite of Mike Mularkey. And unfortunately for Bishop Sankey, that might be his ticket out of here.
Russ Grimm looked like he's turned this offensive line around. Now, it's early yet, but the line looked horrible last year when we played, whether blocking or opening up holes. It looks like a different team. Is it the addition of guys like Conklin in the draft, Ben Jones from Houston, or has Grimm made some adjustments to the scheme that you guys didn't have the year before?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think the addition of Conklin really helped solidify a really weak position over at right guard. And we've also added, like you said, Ben Jones at center, which was something we had players to fill in at center, but it seemed to always be somebody that got injured repeatedly throughout the season. So there was no stability there. Russ Grimm's kind of brought this toughness into the system. And also he replaced an offensive line coach in Bob Bostad that really was not doing the team any favors. He was trying to change the scheme that a lot of the players were familiar with. And people like Chance Warmack were just complaining that they were struggling trying to learn his system. And now Russ Grimm has been brought out of retirement, out of mothballs, to try to bring this team back around. I think that we still do have one position on offensive line that's still a weak point, and that's left guard. Quentin Spain is an undrafted free agent that is currently slotted at the number 1 position. But he is going to be, I guess, challenged for the position with rookie Sebastian Trizola and also with once center Brian Schwenke. And both of those are going to see a lot of time in the Raiders game to see if they can supplant Quentin Spain in the left guard position.
Terry Rabinski and Mike Mularkey were quoted as saying that they wanted Mariota to run more in terms of getting outside of the pocket and working on his deep ball. Have you seen any of that in the preseason?
Well, in training camp, as far as a running quarterback, it's hard to tell because they're not allowed to touch the quarterback. But he has taken off and run many times with success. As far as the deep ball goes, he is, as far as training camp, he has thrown the deep ball consistently and accurately. Unfortunately, so far in the games, they haven't unleashed him at all on the deep ball. I mean, with the exception of maybe one pass that was I think, 19 or 20 yards in the last game, that he's strictly staying to the medium range and short range passes currently. And I don't know if that's just a way of not, showing their hand before the season starts, or whether they're just trying to get him warmed up. I will say that currently he only has one incomplete pass in preseason, and unfortunately that was an interception in last week's game.
What about Darrell Green-Beckham? Who's going to emerge as your number one receiver outside of Delanie Walker now that he's gone?
Well, the Titans have found themselves a diamond in the rough. They currently are really singing the praises of, and you can see it in the preseason games, Tajae Sharpe. He's a rookie out of UMass, and he has just lit it up. Last week he caught all 6 targets that he had. I believe he had 63 yards in receiving, and he's just been exactly what you would hope for in any kind of receiver, and he's already gone up to either the one or two spot on the team. Now, we did sign free agent Rashard Matthews in the offseason, and he is currently in the other 1 or 2 spot. They kind of go back and forth, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tajae Sharpe ended up stealing that number 1 position away from him. He's hits every single step you want on a wide receiver, and he's a rookie already doing it. I think that on top of it, there has been some whispers in the league that he might be potentially the offensive rookie of the year in the AFC. He is just that good.
Let's take a look at the defense. Now, Dick LeBeau's been around forever, and the game really never seems to pass him by. What does he bring to this defense that you didn't see a few years ago?
I think a couple of things. I think, for one, a respect. The team respects what he's done in the past and has seen his resume from other teams, not only as a player but as a coach. But he seems to bring that toughness and a really fun for the game. And players seem to really enjoy playing for him and learning from him, because even at his age and playing and coaching for so long, they're still, as young players, able to learn from his schemes. I think that he's really bringing some fun to this. However, the one thing I will say, out of the two sides of the ball, the one thing we thought was the defense was going to be the strongest point of the team, but right now in the preseason they're struggling just a little.
Well, the Raiders appear to be a pass-first team. Can you tell me a bit about your corners and safeties? Anybody Derek Carr should maybe stay away from on Saturday?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think the secondary is one of those things, and it's mainly in depth. Against the Panthers in the preseason game, neither starter was in the game. They were both kind of held out through minor injuries just as a precaution, and it's Parrish Cox and Jason McCourty. And they had signed some free agents, and one of them, he seems to be struggling just a little bit right now. His name is just not coming to me. But he came over from the Steelers, and I think Antoine Blake. I think that's his name. And he came over from the Steelers, and he was not comfortable at all being out on an island with a receiver. And he's gotten beaten a couple of times. In fact, he was guarding journeyman Ted Ginn Jr. In the game against the Panthers, and not only did he get beat through a crossing pattern, but couldn't tackle him once he caught the ball, so he scored the touchdown. But I'm hoping with our starters, as long as they can stay healthy, that will be handled now.
Derek Morgan and Brian Orakpo are beasts, and the word is that Kevin Dodd is going to be playing linebacker, not defensive end, after he was drafted. Now, that's clearly a strength on your team, and with that being said, who do you think is the most dangerous, most consistent player on your defense?
Well, pretty consistently throughout the last few years, it's always been Jarrell Casey. He's a defensive lineman. He's gone from playing more of a 4-3 defensive tackle to now we're in more of a 3-4, and he plays the defensive end. And for a big man, he can really run and really get in there. And as defensive tackle, defensive end, he last year he had 7 sacks, and it was unusual for a big man like that to get as many sacks as he did playing in the middle. But he's a great run stopper, and he has been one of the lone bright spots over the past few years for the Titans as a whole, because I think he's been one of the few players that's actually made the Pro Bowl.
And do you have an offensive MVP?
Probably the obvious choice is going to be Marcus Mariota, but he is yet to be healthy for an entire year. So Delanie Walker, he really sticks out. Delanie is just that go-to guy, and you saw it again in the game against the Panthers and against the Chargers, but mainly the Panthers. Had a couple of great catches. He's not only good at catching the ball, but blocking downfield as well. He's somebody that is reliable and was always the go-to guy for Mariota when he was in trouble. I think that if Mariota can stay healthy, though, I think there's no denying that he will be this offensive MVP.
Are there any other things that we should be on the lookout for in this game? Something the Raider Nation might not know? A fringe player, perhaps, or someone that you think may have some impact this year, perhaps an undrafted rookie?
Well, I don't know if there's anybody that's undrafted. We've had, I guess there maybe Trey McBride. He's a wide receiver that in a normal year, he probably would not make this squad, but we've really struggled with having a special teams return man, and they're trying him out in that spot, and he's been that main returner for both punts and kickoffs in the last 2 preseason games. He's done well. He hasn't really just stuck out there and made you think that we finally got the guy. Another guy is a draft pick out of MTSU, Kevin Byard. He's a real ball hawk, and he's somebody that can step in. He's a safety, so right now he's not going to be a starter, but he can fill in case of an injury. But they're going to start trying him out and the return game, and hopefully, especially if we see something like we did against the Chargers, he had an interception against them, that he was really good at knowing how to get downfield in a crowded group of people. So if he can continue that in the return game, I think that he's really going to shine and potentially could.
Well, once again, thank you so much for taking your time. And how would Titan fans find your podcast if they wanted to continue listening to you?
Yeah, we have several of those things. We have, obviously, if you go on to iTunes, you can find us there. You can find us on our website, probably is the best place to find us, and that's takeonthetitans.com. We have a Twitter account, @TakeOnTheTitans. We have a Facebook group, Take on the Titans, with that. And if you go to Google and you search Take on the Titans, you're going to find us. So any of those things that you are a Titans fan, or you just an NFL fan and you want to add the Take on the Titans podcast to your list of things to listen to, well, we'd be more than happy to have you.
Well, thanks again. We enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you in week 3. Now, let's go ahead and send it on over to our next segment and Coach Ted.
All right, thank you guys. This is Coach Ted from RaidersAnalysis.com, and today we'll be previewing a few plays from the Tennessee defense and offense and seeing what we have to do against them to be successful.
So we'll be looking at the Tennessee defense first, and their defensive coordinator is Dick LeBeau, longtime NFL defensive coordinator, Hall of Fame defensive coordinator, famous for creating, really innovating the zone blitz, and we're going to see an example of a very well-disguised blitz here. So the first thing I want you to notice that the linebackers on the defensive right are actually bluffing a blitz by coming up to the line. When the play starts, they drop back, and the linebackers that are on defensive left don't show blitz, but they actually blitz. The Carolina offensive line does a very good job of communicating and picking this blitz up, and this is definitely going to be put to the test against the Raiders. The Raiders have a couple new members to their offensive line in Kaliche Osemele and Manelik Watson, and they're going to have to communicate and work together to pick up these type of blitzes. The second thing I want you to notice is that the Tennessee Titans are playing a lot of off coverage, and you'll see that throughout the game. The Raiders have played 2 teams that played a lot of press coverage, and that disrupted the timing of some of our routes. And with off coverage, the playbook opens up a little bit more. We can run more curls, comebacks, those type of routes. So the Titans, even though they show 2 safeties, they're actually disguising their cover 3 coverage. This safety is going to come down to the box, and they're going to show the cover 3. Cam Newton does a good job of finding an open curl route, and Ted Ginn Jr. just takes it a distance. And you can see one of the weaknesses of the Tennessee defense is they lack team speed and hopefully Amari Cooper's healthy and we'll be able to take advantage of this. Defensively, the Raiders are going to be defending the Titans' quote-unquote exotic smash mouth offense. They revamped their line, they drafted Derrick Henry in the second round, and they're really running the ball well. This play, DeMarco Murray is running inside zone play. You can see the offensive line does a great job of washing the defensive line out. Except for this defensive tackle here, he gets through, but Murray makes the correct read, finds a cutback lane, makes the defensive back miss in the hole, and gets some great yardage out of it. The Raiders really struggled holding their gaps and playing sound gap defense against the Green Bay Packers. Hopefully that improved this week, and the Tennessee Titans will be a good test for that. So let's hope our run defense improved and we could shut these type of runs down. Another challenge the Raiders are going to face this week is Marcus Mariota. It looks like a much improved passer. On this play, it's 3rd and long. The Tennessee Titans are running a double slant concept, so this receiver here is going to run a slant, and the outside receiver is running a slant. Marcus Mariota is going to be reading this defender here. If he stays inside, then he's going to throw out. So you can see this defender is defending the inside slant, and Mariota goes to the outside slant, throws a perfectly placed ball, and gets a first down on 3rd and long. Mariota has also become a very effective scrambler. He doesn't panic and do it often, but when he does, he's very effective. Here he finds a hole, he pump fakes a linebacker, and falls down and gets a first down. So the Raiders' defensive line is going to be faced with the challenge of keeping Mariota contained and keeping him in the pocket. Another good thing that we should work on, and hopefully they'll be able to do this.
All right, so the keys offensively is we have to communicate on the offensive line to make sure we pick up those blitzes and protect Derek Carr. And defensively, we're going to have to contain Marcus Mariota and play sound gap defense. That concludes our preview. Please check out my Twitter at Raiders Analysis and check out my website, RaidersAnalysis.com. Thanks for watching.
All right, thank you, Coach Ted. That's going to be some good stuff to think about. All right, now we're going to take a break, Raider Nation, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the matchup between the Oakland Raiders and the Tennessee Titans and the implications of the game, not only for the preseason, but the regular season and possibly the playoffs, not only for our Raiders, but for the Titans as well. We'll be right back.
You can hate the man's team, but don't hate the man. Fans Against Violence. Keep it at home.
What's cracking, Violator?
What's up with you, baby? A-Bomb? Pleasure, brother.
Good to meet you, my
Pleasure.
man.
Pleasure's mine.
Let me explain something to all of you. I'm the biggest Raider hater on the planet, but I love this man. Without rivals, this stuff isn't any fun. If you got to get violent, don't be involved with our game. Don't.
Thank you.
Don't go to games. Don't go to bars. Don't do nothing. Because you know what? It's all right for me to hate his team. If I didn't, he wouldn't respect me. However, ain't no way I can hate somebody this awesome. Here's to you, brother.
Same to you, brother.
Fans Against Violence.
Keep it at home.
Salute.
Yeah.
Boom.
Carpets is celebrating the holidays with a huge inventory clearance sale. We have the best prices and guaranteed installation. Why would you buy anywhere else? Whether you're looking for laminate, vinyl, carpet, tile, or wood, we have it all. Save up to 50% on selected items. Room size rugs, only $69. Visit Carpets at one of our 6 Bay Area locations or call us at 1-800-355-4MMM.
Welcome back, Raider Nation. I am joined by the one and only Raider Pirate.
Yeah, well, let's get right into it, shall we? This is, like we've talked about from the beginning of this broadcast, it's really a bit of a different thing to be playing a divisional opponent in the third game of the season. I'm sorry, not a divisional opponent, but a conference opponent in the third game of the season. In my opinion, we should probably always be playing non-conference opponents so that it really doesn't matter. But in your mind, Knight, how does this affect this football team that in the third game of the season they really can't really kind of come out and really practice on the things that they've been working on because they have to play this team in the regular season?
Yes, well, it really handcuffs us in a lot of different ways. it takes away the fact that this is supposed to be the dress rehearsal game. This is supposed to be the game where we roll out what we believe is going to be our exact starting unit, both on offense and defense. And you try to, slowly implement certain things that you might not implement in some of the other preseason games. Now, not a whole lot, but just little bits here and there to kind of fine tune exactly what you're going to be doing in the regular season from a personnel standpoint. But now both the Raiders and the Titans are not going to be allowed to show too much because we play in week 3. So now the only thing that we're going to be able to do, which is not necessarily a bad thing, is just to look at the depth. But once again, in a vanilla scheme, which has been primarily what we've been doing. But that's kind of been the whole problem moving forward, is the fact that I don't feel we've been able to have the opportunities to really implement what we need to when we have to. And this is the game that everybody's supposed to. It's known around the league that this is the way it works, not just for the Raiders, the Titans, but for the whole league. And the fact that we have to face these guys in week 3 really handcuffs this football team this week.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the guys that we didn't get a chance to see last week, guys like Atkinson and even Washington, and even McGloin had a short number of plays. If the starters actually do come out and play the majority of the time, we're not going to see those guys as well. So maybe it might be a good thing for them to trot those guys out early. Okay, well, what about in terms of the regular season? Now, you just said, you sort of have to be vanilla. Is there a danger that this team starts off slow and by the time they get to week 3, they're sort of in this must-win? Both teams are kind of in this must-win mode against one another?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we've been talking about it all week. Actually, we've been talking about it for the past 2 weeks. The fact that we've been going so vanilla and really keeping a lot of things close to our chest, and now we have to do it once again this week. This might put us into a slow start where New Orleans could actually jump on us. We could come off slow and not be able to perform right against New Orleans and even Atlanta. So by the time we get to Tennessee, now it's a must win because we must have to face these guys. And this would be the second time this season. And there's a possibility we face them in the playoffs. So once again, I just feel that we get handcuffed and this limits our opportunities to push through these teams without showing them too much.
Yeah, and what about the fact that, we're game planning against an opponent twice? I mean, even though one time is in the preseason, it really is the only time during the preseason that you will game plan. But we played the Titans last year, we play them this year, and we're game planning against them twice this year. Isn't it sort of like they're almost an extra AFC West team?
Yes, I remember this happening to us a lot, even when we played the Jets. And there was a stretch where we played the Jets, it seemed like every single year. But we never had to face the Jets in the preseason. So that kind of take the monotony off it a little bit, right? So it gave us an opportunity just to kind of just go with the flow with things instead of having to worry about, how many times we have to game plan. And I guess, it wouldn't be such a big deal if this wasn't the dress rehearsal game, right? It would take a little bit off because it's not allowing us to game plan anything. So we can't take our starters, our projected starters, put them in a half and play them a whole first half with somewhat of a game plan. Not even, we can't even tease the game plan a little bit. That's what's hurting us. It's going to get us out to a slower start. Now, the only good thing that I'll say about it is the Tennessee Titans are in the same boat. So it's not as if they're going to be able to do it. And we understand that. But as a football team, as a team right now, preseason is made to get your team right, evaluate players, and kind of really fine-tune the things that you want to do. And right off the bat, we're handcuffed. It feels like we've been handcuffed this whole preseason. If we're not doing it to ourselves, it's the NFL doing it to us now. So it's like we can't catch a break. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really strange. I mean, you get the Arizona Cardinals, you get the Green Bay Packers, you get the Seattle Seahawks. Any one of those guys would have been perfect to play in week 3, would have given us an opportunity, since we don't play those teams in the regular season, would have given us an opportunity to kind of get in there and really show what we've got. But now it just, like you said, it seems like we've got to once again kind of go into this shell and continue to just evaluate players, which means, again, like we were talking about in the previous segment, we can't really get that chemistry clicking. We can't get that well-oiled machine, the types of reps that it needs. But let's take a look at the preseason. How do you see it affecting the chances of both teams being able to make it into or potentially knocking each other out of the playoffs?
Yes, that's the other interesting factor. If we go and we parallel each other throughout the whole season and we find out coming into week 16 or at the end of week 16, if you will, and we're tied, we have a tied record, that third game could be the tiebreaker that, whoever won that game gets to move on to the wild card. So once again, for both teams, what this does is it hinders us from exposing ourselves too much and not really having the best opportunity to catch the wild card. So instead of it being about our division record or it's going to be about a heads up type thing. So, all these playing this one team that's outside our division, but in our conference, just continues to put a hindrance on our football team.
Yeah, it's really, really strange. And like you said, if you look at Tennessee and then you look at the Raiders, they're kind of parallel teams. A lot of people will compare us to Jacksonville, but we can also be compared to, I believe we could be compared to the Titans as well. Young quarterbacks that are up and comers. I think they've definitely got a much better run game than we do, but I think both offenses have the potential to be explosive, and they both have good defensive, strong defensive minded people that are there kind of getting their team going in the right direction. So again, if we've got an opportunity, who's to say that, it has to be Jacksonville that potentially could push their way into the playoffs? Why not Tennessee if they get a turnaround, a worst to first type of turnaround? So, again, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we both have a 9-7 record or maybe 10-6 record. And again, like you said, we get there, and whoever it was that won this third game of the season that was kind of dictated by a slow start from the preseason, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, there are so many other things that the league could have done. You would figure that somebody in that scheduling office would have said, this is probably not a good idea. There should be some automatic red flags that pop up that go, we probably shouldn't do this. This is a team that played them last year. They have to play them again in the regular season. They're in their conference. Just doesn't make any sense. Any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, just a real quick fix. And this is not a complete fix because we still would have had to play them. But it might even have been a little bit better if they would have just flip-flopped the Seahawk and Titan game to where at least our dress rehearsal game was against a non-conference opponent and a team that we don't play this season. Even that would have been a little bit better. But, once again, it's good to know that we're not the only scenario here. It's the Titans that unfortunately get the same raw deal. But once again, what is the NFL trying to do here? They got all this time, all this money on their hands to be able to make a schedule. There's plenty of opponents that we could play. So we don't get to play the Niners because of the violence. We got to play the Arizona Cardinals. We could have played the Rams. I don't understand why the Rams weren't even on the schedule. That would have been a good one to sell, whether it was in Oakland or at the Coliseum. So, and it really cuts down on traveling time. So I don't know who makes this stuff up, man, but once again, it seems like the Raiders are getting the short end of the stick of it.
No, absolutely. And like you said, it would just make sense that they would come down and look at this in terms of how it would affect, this is the preseason. It's not supposed to matter, but we know now that this game is going to matter one way or another going into the regular season, and Correct. It could have big implications in the playoffs. Again, pie in the sky stuff, call us biased, whatever you will, thinking that both ourselves and the Tennessee Titans are going to get to the playoffs, but it could happen, and that's the thing that we should be looking at. Why have something there that just there's no necessity for it? This wouldn't happen to, some of the perennial winners. I don't think it's going to happen to the Patriots. It's not going to happen to the Packers or the Cowboys or any of these other types of teams. It happens to the Titans and to the Raiders. Oh, well, you guys haven't done much. What have you done for me lately? Win more. And, these types of things won't happen to you. So, it is what it is. But, all right, fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our pick'em section, shall we?
All right.
Tonight, our games are Oakland versus Tennessee, Kansas City and Chicago, the Giants at the Jets, and the Rams at Denver. Let's have a look at the results for this week. Okay, so we want to thank our fantastic Raiderette there for showing up for us here today for our Pick'em segment. As you can see on the left side, there are the teams: Tennessee at Oakland, Kansas City at Chicago, New York at New York, as well as the Rams at Denver. So if you take a look in that first game, of course, obviously, all of the Raider analysis are picking the Raiders to win. The Tennessee analysis, that's a no-brainer. But if you take a look, I'm going ahead and picking Chicago. The Night is also picking Chicago. Coach Ted really likes that running game, so it looks like he's going with Kansas City. And also Mike is going ahead and picking Chicago as well. If you take a look at that New York game, that Subway Series, it looks like I'll be going with the New York Giants. Just like what I want to see what they have with this new coaching staff. The night is high on the coaching staff that they put together with Bowens. I think he secretly wanted Bowens to be our coach before we got Del Rio. Coach Ted's going with the Giants, and Mike is going with the New York Jets. But look, the Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos getting absolutely no love. This may have something to do with the quarterback situation. The Rams, not much better, but wow, Todd Gurley, that guy can run the ball. And I think they got a pretty good defense, and I think everybody agrees. So once again, guys, we're going to look back at this, next week. This is just our preseason. This one will not count, but we will be tallying this up next week, and we'll be letting you guys know that are out there who is going to be invited to join our Pick'em League. So that's what we have so far. Let's move on.
Well, folks, that's going to wrap up our show this evening. We'd like to thank you for watching the Will to Win broadcast pregame version, the Oakland Raiders versus the Tennessee Titans at the Oakland Coliseum. At this time, we would like to invite you to come onto YouTube at the Will to Win right after the game. We'll be taking your live phone calls, getting your instant reactions, as well as sharing our thoughts and our instant reaction. The season is approaching, and we'd just like to thank you all for all your support, and we encourage you to find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at the Will to Win. If you have any questions or concerns, you could also email us at theww@gmail.com. That is theww@gmail.com. All right, guys. Until after the game, and as of next week, we will see you then. Stay Raider strong. Hey there, I'm Jason Smith, also known as the Oakland Knight. We'd like to thank you for watching the Will to Win broadcast here on YouTube, and if you would like to stay up to date for more content like this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below, or you can click any one of the videos on the side to watch more great videos. Thank you once again, and stay Raider strong.